kind. Missing a dog. Cry where you gone, son. Dreams, dog. Chasing my dreams, dog. One Psalms a day, beg Jah for guide me and my team, dog. Dreams, dog. Chasing my dreams, dog. Rest in peace, Kyle, you was a real brother to me, my dog.
First, there was SARS. Identified in 2002 as the cause of an outbreak of severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. Then, there was MERS. Identified in 2012 as the cause of Middle East respiratory syndrome, MERS. Then, mutated into SARS-2. Or as some of you already known it as COVID-19. The coronavirus. First, let's take a look at MERS.
The first confirmed case was reported in Saudi Arabia in 2012. Contact with camels is believed to be the source of many human infections. Since then, cases have been reported in over 20 countries, including the US, Europe, Asia, and Africa. More than 1,200 people have been infected, of which more than 440 have died, with the vast majority of those deaths occurring in Saudi Arabia.
Now, let's take a look at SARS.
On November 16, 2002, a man in Guangdong becomes ill with fever and respiratory symptoms. 3 months later, Guangdong health authorities report an outbreak of atypical pneumonia in hundreds of people. 10 days later, a doctor from Guangdong travels to Hong Kong, unknowingly infected with the virus. There, he infects people who then board international flights. He dies on March 4th. One of these people flies to Toronto and infects several family members. She dies on March 5th.
What we have here is an epidemic of new virus that's causing problems in virtually every corner of the globe.
It's now reached North America and has already spread through half a dozen Asian countries.
We have confirmed export of cases from Toronto to Australia and the USA.
World Health Organization's warning its first emergency travel advisory in a decade.
Researchers from the World Health Organization say they are encouraged by steps being taken in China to control the disease.
The outbreak may be decreasing in Hong Kong, Singapore, and in Toronto.
Due to an unprecedented global collaboration, the World Health Organization can say that the SARS outbreaks have been contained worldwide.
COVID-19, coronavirus.
Dr. Anderson took me to another part of the facility to show me where the virus came from. Bats gathered in China for food. A vet here captured one, and in a containment cage, she showed it to me.
And why bats? How confident are you that the coronavirus came from bats?
So I'm probably 90% confident that the new coronavirus came from bats.
The initial contamination, she says, likely happened here at a filthy animal market in Wuhan, China. Someone there, she believes, butchered a bat, came into contact with its blood or urine, and then touched his or her mouth or nose.
And answering the question of where COVID-19 came from does more than just give you something to blame. It will also help scientists address this and other illnesses that make the jump from humans to animals. Elodie Gadden is an epidemiologist and a molecular virologist at New York University's School of Global Public Health, and this happens to be her specialty. So, Elodie, thanks for being here, number one. But let's start off with, how do we know that it's actually the bat's fault?
Well, if you look at the genetic information of the virus, and that's what we do when we sequence. So the genetic information has basically, that's what the genome of the virus has. And this indicates what the provenance is from. So the genetic information is like a barcode. And if we compare other viruses that have been collected in bats, and the SARS from 2003 was a bat virus also, and it's very similar to our current SARS-CoV. And looking at these viruses and looking at their genetic information is like looking at a family tree. You can trace who resembles whom. And that's what we're doing exactly with this virus.
So they're able to look at the virus in humans and trace it all the way back and say, this is where it started. It started with these animals, in this case, bats.
That's right. So if you compare that information, it's basically so similar that for that to happen randomly is practically impossible. So we know the ancestor of the virus in humans had to be a bat virus.
People always talk about patient zero, about trying to get back to that first patient that had this, which in a case like this is virtually impossible to do. But why is it important to find out where it originated, what animal it started in?
Okay, so when you look at what we call zoonotic transmission, so basically it's from an animal to a human, what you often want to understand is what are the conditions that really lead to that kind of transmission. So knowing where the virus comes from is important from an epidemiological standpoint. It's, if it comes from bats, could we prevent such emergence by preventing the contact of human and animal or wildlife, in this case, bats? So it's important to know where a virus comes from.
One of the big questions I get from viewers is this mutating? Is this virus going to mutate and we're going to have to do something like we do with the flu, or could it even be more deadly? Is that something to be scared of?
Well, a virus always mutates. Just by nature, viruses mutate quite quickly, and that's part of their adaptation to their new hosts. And so it will mutate, and it's very possible that it'll be like flu, where the mutations will lead to new surface proteins, and that's what our immune system recognizes, are basically the proteins on the surface of the virus. And the virus, it's possible that coronavirus will be like flu, where although now we're all susceptible and we will eventually, we suspect maybe 70 to 80% of us will catch it, that means we will have some resistance against that version of the virus. And it's possible that it becomes a seasonal coronavirus like we see in the human population. We have human coronaviruses that come back every year. And it's possible that SARS-CoV will be becoming one of those seasonal epidemics. We just don't know at this point, and the vaccine would have to be updated every year, just like the flu.
And up until a couple of weeks ago, it was called novel coronavirus. That novel meaning it's new. And so what you're saying is, since it's new and our bodies haven't found this before, we don't really have much protection against it, but that protection might build up over time.
Correct. That's right. And that's what happens with the flu. All flu, seasonal flu that we see today were pandemics decades ago. So the 1918 flu that we always talk about as the worst pandemic we've seen in our history actually is now a seasonal flu, or became a seasonal flu until we had another pandemic in 2009. And this one also has become a seasonal flu.
So, guys, wash your hands. Physical distancing, social distancing. And by staying home, staying safe, will definitely save lives. We are all in this together.
Thanks for watching. Created and directed by Russell Shaun Edwards. For more videos call 471-5815.